Hi guys, I'm Elle and welcome back to another video. So tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about the concept of time passing and life going by and anxiety around that. Can you see the moon up there? This might never get posted because I don't have notes for this. It wasn't a planned video. I haven't planned to talk about this topic ever. It's just something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and I think I feel quite heavy anxiety around it. And I thought, you know, what this is for documenting those kind of processes. I'm sorry about the airplanes. And those thought patterns, and just making people who feel the same way not feel like they're the only ones. I think to me, the thing that's scariest about recognizing time passing and kind of how quick things go by is just the sheer speed of it, you know? I'm not grown, I'm not a fully fledged adult yet. And to me, I feel like in the grand scheme of things, the short life that I've lived so far has gone so fast. I also think the concept of not really remembering much, because obviously forming memories at a young age isn't really a thing for a lot of people. So not really remembering much of the already short time that I've lived always freaks me out, because I start thinking like, am I going to remember this? I'm sure I will. But it's always a thought that crosses my mind. I also get quite bad death anxiety and afterlife anxiety. I won't talk about that too much because I'll freak myself out, and I'm very easily triggered about it, and I feel like it's a quite common thing that people who have that anxiety around that are quite easily triggered. Unfortunately, I won't really be able to make anyone feel better because I don't even know how to make myself feel better. So I think time passing is one of those things that's difficult because it's so inevitable. Sorry, I just shifted the furniture a bit. It was really annoying me the way I was so blocked off. Anyway, obviously people are scared of what they can't understand and what they don't understand. I think that's an objective fact. I wouldn't say that it's been proven because I don't know. I don't want to make that claim, but I imagine that it's quite a well-known thing. It's why things like bigotry and hatred exist, because people are scared. If no one was scared, then everyone would be happy and fine all the time, and that's not how life works. So knowing that you'll never kind of be able to understand all these kind of abstract concepts makes you scared of them, and that's obviously where the anxiety comes in. I think a big thing for me about time passing is the fact that I enjoy so many experiences that I have and so many things that I do, and then all of a sudden they're over. And I think the fact and the knowledge that a lot of the time life will be enjoyable experiences that inevitably end is obviously not the most exciting thought. I think, I don't want to say my biggest advice, because I'm going to be very honest and say that I don't even know how to make myself feel better a lot of the time. But I think my biggest comfort is understanding that being able to experience time going by is a privilege. I think that social media pushes a fear of aging and time passing onto people in a different sense, like I said, like aging. And I think it makes it seem scary. There's all these 12-year-olds using skincare that isn't even good for their skin, but it's a standard that getting older is a bad thing, when at the end of the day, getting older is the biggest privilege and the biggest luck anyone could ever ask for. And it's so normal to get old, in the way of people don't recognize it as a privilege, because getting older means perhaps getting iller and other people passing away, which obviously is not a pleasant thought, but it's also pleasant to know that you get to keep going and you get to keep living for people and you get to keep experiencing things. I think that people don't often understand the weight of life and almost the power that it gives you, in the way that a lot of people aren't that lucky, and I know that's a fact and everyone knows that, but it's not appreciated enough in day to day. And obviously, like I said, no one necessarily wants to think about getting old or all the things that come with that, but I don't know what the psychological reason behind it is, but as humans, I think we're so, for some reason, trained to focus on the negative of things, whether that's a general human race thing or whether it's a generational thing that has kind of come up as time has gone on. But I do think it's very common, especially because in a digital world we're so surrounded by other people's opinions and experiences, and it really warps your mind in the way of what you think is going to happen to you and what you think might happen to you and what you think maybe should happen to you, when at the end of the day the base facts of it is life is a privilege. Having the time to pass is a privilege. Being bored is a privilege. Having space to witness time passing in is a privilege. And while that might not be comforting, it's definitely something to think about. But also, I know it's very difficult to think about those things without getting too into the concepts of the things that already scare you. Like I said, in a digital world, it's very difficult to focus on positivity, especially when so many things are negative and so many people lack empathy and respect and kindness. I know I said this in the Rising Lack of Empathy Online video, but I also think it's so important, if you have these kind of fears, to create positive space for yourself and know what works for you. A lot of the time, I wouldn't encourage this, but when it comes to things like this, just distract. Focus on the positives. Don't think about them. Don't think about them too much, because there's a fine line, you know? And then once you focus on the positives and that's your most recent, what you've got in your head, distract. And think about rainbows and flowers and wind and the sound of rain and birds in the morning, you know? And watch your favourite TV show or listen to your favourite song or hang out with your favourite people. I think other people are a huge comfort for me, in the fact that I mainly think about these things when I'm alone, because I mainly get triggered by these things when I'm alone, because a lot of the time I see things online or on TV and things like that just get me a bit, or I have too much space to myself to think and it just kind of goes, you know? I think obviously my family, as much as I love them, I don't like to talk to them about this kind of thing, because all it makes me think about is their time passing as well. I like to talk to my friends. I like to find comfort in my friends. I find comfort in my boyfriend. I find comfort in so many things that I could literally sit here for hours and list them all. But my main thing is my support circle, my boyfriend and my friends. Usually I would say my family, but not necessarily in this instance. I do, especially my mum, I do mention it to her, but I don't like to discuss it. I don't like to really discuss it with anyone, because then it just makes me think about it. Just surrounding yourself with people who can also distract you is so good. And I think making those people aware of your anxiety around these things is so good. For example, my friends not as much, just because they know, but we're not really in any situations ever where these kind of things get brought up. But my boyfriend especially is very good at knowing when things might upset me. If he recommended me a show the other day, and then he went, oh, actually no, you won't like that, because there was a fair amount, like quite a solid theme in it about time going on and that kind of thing. Knowing that your people, even if it's just one person, knowing that your people know your triggers and can kind of know your feelings and your almost signs, if that makes sense, then that's so important, because it means that when you need them to distract, you don't have to like explain yourself. It's very important, because that'll just make it worse, because you just have to think about it more. So being able to have these people that are kind of on your wavelength and on that same par with you is so important. I also think one of my main things would be try not to get too mad at yourself. I get quite upset at myself. I beat myself up a bit because I feel like I get triggered by very small things. We watched the new Final Destination movie. Couldn't do it because it's literally constant death. Things like that. My boyfriend tried to read me a book the other day. He had to take a big pause because there was a bit in it where he didn't read it to me, obviously, but based on stuff before, I could see where it was going. And I once got triggered because I was watching a YouTube video and this guy like walked through a graveyard. You can't control that about yourself. You can manage it, but what sets you off and what makes you feel a certain way is not your fault. Because if it was your fault, that would mean that you're choosing to feel like that, and no one, I know for a fact, no one would choose to feel this way about these things. I think that understanding your triggers is important, but don't, like I said, knowing these things and then focusing too much on them is a very thin tightrope type line to kind of hang on to, and it can get a bit difficult. But I think you should never approach things like that, like trying to figure out what triggers you, or have conversations about it, stuff like that. Never focus on those in the moment, because like I said, those kind of things just make it worse, in the sense that focusing on it just sends you deeper into it. You need to get out of that space first, and then once you're there and you have a clearer head and you're less deeply kind of immersed in it, it's then easier to recognize what set you off, why that maybe set you off, and how to avoid it in the future. I do think, like I said before, I wouldn't normally recommend avoidance, but with things like this, where it's not necessarily something that in day-to-day life can be completely ignored, it's best to kind of manage it in that way. Obviously, there are always genuine professional methods out there. I'm pretty sure CBT is used for like death anxiety and things like that. If you have access to that, I would take it. Never be embarrassed. I get quite embarrassed because I get so emotional over time passing. I've been thinking about it a lot recently because I'm in my last year of, oh my god, no I'm not. I'm at the end of my first year of university. I don't know why I made that claim, that was crazy. I'm in the end of my first year of university and I have to leave soon, and it's just knowing that it's not going to be like this ever again is emotional to me. And I have formed so many memories here and so many connections. I met some of my best friends here, I met my boyfriend here, and knowing that I won't get these exact experiences with them again makes me emotional. And sometimes I feel silly for that, because I know it's not like the end of my first year means I'm never going to talk to these people again, because they're in my life, they're my friend, it's my boyfriend, you know? Like, I do feel silly, but I'm try to be fair to yourself. It's okay to maybe recognise that it's less rational, or less, not justified, but less like fact-based or logical, and it's more of an emotional response. But be fair to yourself when you're recognising that. Again, don't beat yourself up, don't be embarrassed. If the people in your life don't understand your anxiety and your feelings and your sensitivities around those things, then I don't want to make any bold claims, but maybe they're not your people, because I'm sure they have things that they can't help. This is something you can't help. So all of that goes for things like time passing, you know, existentialism, that kind of thing, death anxiety, anything like that. I think just anxiety in general, but obviously with anxiety in general, I would have more specific advice for different things. I kind of think that's it. This is probably going to be a shorter video because I haven't spoken about much. It's the kind of train of thought that I wanted to get out, and I don't know if this is going to be comforting because I've spoken about things that haven't necessarily triggered me because I'm not upset, but I've approached them from an objective, like, detached standpoint. I'm so sorry for the slight change. A security guard just came to lock the building that I'm outside of. Anyway, if you are feeling any which way about this video after this video, then please seek the help and comfort that you need, whether that's professional or just a little bit of reassurance. Do what is best for you after this video, and I hope everyone is having a lovely, lovely night. Remember that you are loved more than you know, and you are worth the world and more. And thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you in the next one.